Welcome to a live Kerfefe break on Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I am your host, Keri. Um, Welcome on this Monday, October 9th. It's a beautiful fall day here in Texas. I'm loving this month of October, and I hope you're enjoying fall wherever you are. Of course, if you're not in the US, it's probably a little bit different fall for you, the seasons, but it's beautiful here, and it's finally cooled off. Um, let's see. A couple things I should say up front that I always forget, and I've been scolded, so I'm gonna say them. We do have, if you like the show, we do have ways to support the show. You can do so at Subscribestar, you can do so at Locals or Patreon, or here at YouTube. You can become a member, and we're very grateful for all of our supporters. You're the ones who help us to be able to spend as much time doing this as we do. It's like hanging out on the channel. Um, and I really appreciate it. So announcement out of the way. Couple of other things. Hello, Amy, two sisters in some yarn. I was really blessed to get to meet Amy in person for the first time, and it was wonderful because it was one of those kind of meetings where you feel like you've already met the person, you feel like you already know them, and in fact, your brain is sort of catching up, like, "Well, do I?" But we're friends already. We've been friends. Like, I feel like I already have met you in person. So that was awesome, and I highly recommend meeting your internet friends. Of course, it's always funny when you meet internet friends because then some people are like, "Who are you meeting?" "Oh, someone I met online." What?" Uh, Two Sisters in Some Yarn says, "It was such fun. Tiger was a perfect gentleman." He was. We went to Green Music Hall. Green is a historic town in Texas, and they have a really famous or infamous music hall. Green, of course, is a German word. I think I can't say it. It's like grüne or something. But here in Texas, we call it green. And that's where we met up. And Tiger came. He was a little gentleman. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Sue. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Tomorrow's my birthday. And we are just actually in the middle of I don't know, we got back from Europe. We had to go, we went back on the road shortly thereafter to see some family, and, returned, and now we have our friend's son staying with us from Germany. It's his first time in America here in Texas, and so we've been enjoying Texas and doing Texan things, and I will say I've already taken him to some vintage antique shops. I think we have the best in Texas. 'Cause you go in, it's almost like a museum, and no matter what you're interested in, you can find interesting old things there. So, for example, he's very into American football, and there's all kinds of old football magazines and books and, collector's cards and history, and so, he enjoyed it, even though I guess people consider it an old lady thing to go to these thrift stores. But no, he had a good time. And what else are we doing? We've done Texas barbecue. Yesterday we went to church. We got to hang out with some friends afterwards, and then went to a jam session, like another friend from church. They were having musicians at his house to play. So we did that last night. That was so fun. And our friend's son has remarked that everything is bigger here in the States. Some of his first observations were everything's bigger, the roads, the houses, even the houses from the outside. He said they look kind of small or normal, and then you go inside and they're very large. Also, the food here is pretty good, but pretty decadent. And he said he has great respect for any Americans who are not fat, given the food that is readily available everywhere here, and our more sedentary lifestyle. We just don't walk as much as Europeans. We don't. And so it's really funny just to see Texas with fresh eyes. One of the things he thinks is horribly offensive is seeing advertisements. We've been seeing advertisements at convenience stores for these frozen Jimmy Dean croissant burgers. It's like a croissant with a burger inside. He thinks that's criminal. He said that's criminal. So there's, like, little things like that that, are kinda funny. Anyway, tomorrow for my birthday, we're gonna take him shooting. He's never been shooting, so that's gonna be a real Texas American treat. Um Aw, my husband's here. He says, "Happy birthday." Thank you, sweetie. Yeah. So today I figured since we're just doing stuff around the house, we're getting caught up. We have guests here and it's fall and there's so much going on. I just wanted to see what you wanted to talk about. I figured today would truly be a Kerfefe break unplugged episode. I originally was going to talk about immigration today, but I think I'm going to wait and do that later because I'm just not feeling it. I'm just feeling, I don't know. It's all this stuff in the news with what's happening in Israel. I said something on Twitter this morning. I'll say it now. You don't always have to have a quick opinion on everything. You don't. And I think social media and some people having acquired modest followings um, has sort of corrupted people's brains and made them addicted to engagement or growth or whatever. And it seems like a lot of people just feel like they have to be experts on everything and they have to have an opinion or a take on everything immediately. And I can promise you, probably no one needs to hear your take. um, Probably. Maybe you're one of the few people that has a very interesting and well-informed opinion that everybody needs to hear, or something unique to say, but in general, nobody needs to hear it. You could take some time and, not say hasty things, and certainly not try and farm engagement or outrage or get attention by saying horrible things in support of terrorism or in support of, atrocities or brutality. And I've seen some people doing that. Some people on the left doing that. Some people supposedly in the anti-woke space doing that. So that's my only thought about what's been going on because otherwise I just think it's awful. And I'm the last person to offer an opinion on what should be done or uh, how to reach peace in the Middle East. I'm the last person. So, but yes. Oh yeah, left showing their true colors. Yeah, people supporting there's no even in war, there are rules of engagement, right? Like there you don't brutally attack women and children and the elderly. You don't rape them. You don't parachute into a music festival and kidnap young women for the purposes of torturing and raping them and brutalizing them. You don't do that. There are rules of engagement even in war. And I've seen some people, they seem to have this attitude of like, some of the horrible posts, maybe you've seen them on Twitter of people trying to justify this. And it's almost like they are sort of saying, this is what happens. This is just what happens, you know, and you need to become you need to become a monster in order to defeat a monster. No, that's crazy. I can promise you it might be hard to figure out who are the good guys and bad guys, and maybe there are no outright good guys, but I can promise you the good guys are not the ones parachuting into a music festival and kidnapping, torturing, and murdering women and kids. So I know that part. I know that part of it. There's no reason ever to do that. It's that Nietzsche quote about be careful fighting monsters lest you become the monster you fight. And some people seem to have the attitude, like philosophically, of like, oh, you have to resort to your enemy's tactics in order to win, and they talk about it's similar. They say this in war or in conflict, but they also say it in political conflict or, political division. They're sort of like, "This is why we deserve to lose. This is why you deserve to have your kids trans in schools. This is why you deserve to lose." That kind of mentality of like, you have to become evil like me and like the other side in order to win. No, you don't. And actually becoming as evil as your enemy just makes you the same as your enemy, then nobody wins. Then it's all losers across the board. All losers. I don't care if you're talking about war or you're talking about politics or whatever, that there's a certain mentality, a kind of person that's, like, okay with becoming the monster they fight, that they supposedly fight, and, I think that's losing. Absolutely. You don't become a monster to win. Anyway, that was just a thought. Probably also triggered in part by my pastor's sermon yesterday, just thinking about different stuff, but so what do you guys wanna talk about? Dom. Hello, Dom. He says, "I'm extremely annoyed at people who get up to defend any country except their own. No one's trying to defend America ever." Yeah, a lot of these people who are defending terrorism at the moment, they're the same people who think American flags are cringe or America's cringe, but yet they live here and they take advantage of, you know, lower taxes compared to other countries, and it's pretty high taxes now, but lower compared to Europe. They take advantage of the benefits of being an American while trying to shirk by trying to pretend like they're embarrassed or they are resentful that they're American. It's weird. I saw one of the woke knitters, Neil from Blocked Magazine, had had linked to this person who it was a video, and she was saying that she appreciates when people put American flags on their porches because she knows which neighborhoods to avoid. And it's like, can you imagine saying that about any other country you live in, you know? Then why do you live here? Get the F out. Like, you obviously hate it. But on the other hand, I'm glad you expressed that. If it's that easy to trigger you, then all we need to do to keep woke people like you out is put American flags on our porches. Great. I have one on my porch. Maybe more people should put them up if that's all it takes to get you to leave. If we put them all over Texas, will you promise not to move here? Like, yeah. Pathetic said Pathetic Hermetic says those flags work, she's not there. Oh, speaking of flags, this is a great, cute little positive story that happened last week, with our friend who's visiting from Germany. So we were in Lubbock, Texas, and there is a flag shop there. I don't even think they have a website. I think they have a Facebook, and that's it. I was looking. They're called A1 flags, but you can find them in Lubbock, Texas, if you happen to be in that area. We went there, my husband and I, we had to exchange a flag we had bought previously. We were trying to get a we were trying to get an American flag to replace our other one, and anyway, they gave us a Texas flag by mistake, so we had to replace it. We were going in to get an American flag, and the guy who runs the place is just, um, the kindest, most generous, based, classic, good old boy. No negative connotation to that phrase like the wokies want. He's just a good country boy. They have all of the flags on they have huge all different sizes of flags, of course, and they have all kinds of Texas flags, American flags, and then "Don't Tread on Me," of course. They have some Confederate flags. They have some, Trump flags and "Let's Go Brandon" flags, but they don't have anything leftist. There's nothing leftist. Nary a what do they call the new stupid where they took the LGBT flag and they made it stupid? The progress flag. They don't have any progress flags. They don't have anything like that. Um, and he doesn't shy away from his beliefs. And anyway, very high quality flags. But here's the very kind thing he did. So he found out our friend was visiting from Germany and it was his first time here in Texas and America. And so he just gave him, as we were leaving, he just gave him a Texas flag and said, "Take this back to Germany with you, as a gift from Texas." And it's like a $45 flag. It was a really nice flag. Um, just very kind. And our friend was blown away. And he's like, "People just do this in Texas?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's going to go to visit some other cities on his trip. And we were sort of saying, not every place, like if you go to Los Angeles or New York City, for example, you may not have the same kind of treatment at a shop where people are just giving you stuff. But that definitely happened here. So A1 Flags in Texas. I would plug them online more than this because they were so kind, except, like I said, they're sort of, they don't even have a real online presence. I'm sure you could find their phone number, but I asked him, I was like, "Do you have an Instagram?" He was like, "No, Telegram, and that's it." I'm like, "Oh, based." Anyway, um, my my husband, I don't see what he's responding to, but I think he might be talking about his new album. My husband, Anthony Garcia Music, who's here, this is another cool thing that's happening for us this week. He's got a new album coming out. I know he just put the sort of more sort of Spanish guitar one out. That one's called Moonlight, and he's been working his butt off to get another album of songs ready for a songwriter festival that he's doing, and that album's coming out. I think it's this week. He can clarify in the chat, but he just put out one of the songs today on his YouTube channel. You can go listen to it there to get like a glimpse of what's on the album. It's a fantastic album, if I do say so. I'm a little biased because he's my husband, but it's a really great album, and it's just called Songs, and that's coming out this week. Kitty Earring says, Helena, yeah, it's October. It's the best month. We're getting spooky here. We're getting into the swing of things. Wednesday night, if you missed it, this past Wednesday night was our first, Mystery Chris and I did our first Halloween themed pop culture, and we talked about cults in film. This coming Wednesday, we're doing another spooky night. We're going to do true crime, and we hope you guys will come hang out with us. We'll be in, bring your holiday garb, bring your pumpkin spice, whatever, and come have a good spooky Wednesday night with us. That's going to be Wednesday, 8 o'clock. That's our regular time. Two Sisters and Some Yarn says, I will say the yarn shops I went in while in Texas, they took my based money happily. They sure didn't ask if I agreed with their alphabet shirt. True. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Andrew Joyner. He gave me 5 birthday bucks. Thank you so much. They say it's your birthday. 5 birthday pounds. Thank you, sir. It's very kind. Um, let's see. What else? What else do you guys want to talk about? The other reason we're just hanging out this morning and I'm not trying to even do a specific topic is I'm trying to sell a lot of stuff because we're moving into a new phase of renovation soon, hopefully. So there's a lady coming to pick up a chair soon, and I might have to get up and help her when somebody knocks on the door. So that's going to happen. What are you guys doing? What are you doing this October? Oh, Two Sisters and Some Yarn says knitting drama is afoot. I don't know what drama you're talking about, but I'm sure I'll find out because tonight, I should plug this. Tonight at 6 o'clock Central, I'm going to be on Knit Night, the Knit Night podcast. So if you guys watch that, here, let me see if I can find I'll drop it in the chat. You can go and check out their channel if you haven't heard of it, especially if you are a knitter or crocheter. Knit Night. Here we go. So tonight at 6, they have different guests come on. Like I know Neil for Blocked Magazine has been on before. Here we go. Boom. I think Therese is on. Therese, are you going to be there? I see her in the chat. So whatever knitting stuff's happening, you let me know tonight because I don't know. I'm kind of out of the loop with our friend here. Renovation 2.0, the real beginning. Yes, Drifter. That's what we're getting into next. Man, we have a lot of stuff left to do. So I think our next big project is either going to be we're in the middle of deciding, we're clearing out space and stuff, but we're either going to tackle the kitchen or the exterior of the house, including the balcony, which needs to be replaced basically. That's where the raccoon was getting in. I did see some people talking about the raccoon before I got here. We haven't caught the raccoon yet. I did catch another. He's not in the house though. We got him. He came out of the house. We sealed the holes back up, but he's still lurking. And in the live trap, I caught another cat. Then I switched out my bait and I put peanut butter in there instead of fish. And this sneaky, smart little creature went in the live trap and took the plastic container with some peanut butter in it and left and did not get caught. And I found the empty plastic container around on the back of the house where he basically just was smart enough to go in the trap and not get caught. I told you, I didn't realize raccoons are very intelligent. And so I have to try and bait it again. And hopefully he steps on the thing this time that closes the door. Yeah, you're laughing, Alina, but he's smart. When I saw the peanut butter was missing, I was like, what? Like, again, this raccoon, it looks like he took a crowbar to get inside the holes to get back in our walls while we were in Europe. He's very intelligent. So, yeah, he's very clever. Michael suggests we do the outside work while it's cool out, save the kitchen for summer. I think that's a good plan. Plus, we have insulated the attic. My husband and I did, but we haven't insulated under the house yet, and we have to do that before it gets much colder. Because here in Texas, well, we have like a lot of these pier and beam houses, and there's no basement, and the wind right now just blows under the house. And last winter, even though we had heat, the heat couldn't keep up. It wasn't working. I mean, it was working, but it didn't do anything because it was so cold, and all the cold air coming up from under the house, it froze Tiger's water in his water dish into solid ice. So we have to do that before. I don't want that. That was so cold last winter. I think some of you guys remember on the podcast, I had to come down all bundled up just to be downstairs. It was so cold. So I'm like, yeah, I can't. Let's see. Dion says raccoon 1 carries air. Oh, it's more than that, Dion. Let's see. I mean, if you count, I've caught 2 cats in the trap. He took my bait and left. Like he just keeps besting me. Put the bait under the trap if it's the case. Oh, you are so smart. Thank you. I'm thinking about that. I think that could work. I appreciate it, Scriptic Mind. Okay, I'm just looking through the chat to see if there's anything you guys want to talk about. Do you have any questions for me just hanging out today? We have just a little bit of a fun frivolity day, no serious topics. I think we could all use some frivolity given all the craziness in the world, in the news. Darian Murphy for $4.99. Did you see that Ryan Carlson's girlfriend is not cooperating with police? She's trying to help free her boyfriend's killer. No, but we talked about that case a little bit on Friday when I had Deb Philman on, and I had heard at the time there were rumors that she would not give a description of the suspect to the police, which it's like they had video anyway. But it wouldn't surprise me because I think when you're in that ideology for that long, it just warps the way you think about everything. And so think about any kind of cult once you've been brainwashed and you're in it, and if you're on the outside looking in, you can't understand some of the behaviors sometimes. Like, why would people follow what this guy says and in the case of the Manson family, go and kill somebody, or in the case of Heaven's Gate, kill themselves, or why would people do these things that don't make sense, that are not in their best interest? But it's because you're completely taken over by this belief system, this little world that you're in, this echo chamber. And social justice, in my opinion, is very much like a cult. It's missing one key ingredient, which is like having one charismatic leader. And so people, I think a lot of times they can't really see it as a cult because they're so used to seeing that cults being portrayed that way in popular culture and in news whenever we cover cults. But ideology can be cult-like too. And if you know anybody in that ideology, you know that they isolate, they cut people off who are not in the belief system. They that's a cult characteristic. They also change language. They come up with new words and phrases to control the way that people in the ideology think. That's cult-like. They change definitions of existing words. So, I mean, up is down, down is up. That's very cult-like. They shame people for asking questions. And so the longer that you're in that kind of cult environment, yeah, she probably views her boyfriend's killer as put upon by society. This is this is her big chance to show how sincere she really is about her ideology and her beliefs, right? So I I don't know. I had not heard that, but I'm not that surprised. WG, here's a donation for insulation expenses, all of us. Thank you so much. $50. What a very kind super chat. I appreciate it, sir. Thanks for tuning in. I don't think I've heard from you in a while. I know there's a lot of people who watch but don't comment. Oh, speaking of, I don't think I ever told you guys, since we're just having a shoot the shit day. I was at one of my favorite antique shops. Maybe I did tell you guys. This was just a few weeks ago after we got back from Europe. And I was at one of my favorite antique shops. It's called Vintique in Taylor, Texas, and they have all different booths. And I did post about this one because it was so just wow, what a small world. So I had Tiger with me, and I'm just looking through this booth, and it's all 1960s. It's all pop culture stuff from like the the 50s and the 60s, 70s, kind of those 3 decades. And it's really colorful. And the owners of that booth happened to be there that day. And they said something like, "Hey, if you buy on a day when we're here," the guy said something nice like, "Hey, since we're here, we always tell people it's 10% off if you buy anything, you know." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And then his wife from across the booth goes, "Keri Smith." And I thought, "What? I'm in trouble. What happened?" Like, and I was like, "How do we know each other?" And she was like, "No, Deprogrammed." And I was like, "What?" She knew the show. It was such a small world moment. It was amazing. And I had been in their booth several times before, just they had never been there when I was there. It was one of these antique malls where you, like, pay for space. And so, they just happened to be there that day, and how funny is that? That they just randomly they listened to the show. I was like, "That's the coolest thing." So I bought some really funny things from that booth. I'm gonna plug them now since I'm talking about them. Here, let me show you if I can, switch and go to this account so I can show you some of the pictures. That must have been a surreal moment. It was! That's only happened 3 times before. No, 2 times before, so this is the 3rd time. Like, out in the wild where you wouldn't expect it. Not at, like, a convention or a meetup where you would expect it, but just out in the wild. It's super surreal. It's like, "What? That's kinda cool." Okay. Uh, they're called the surprise box, and, here's a picture of some of the stuff. I can actually just show you some of the funny stuff I bought, and then I ended up taking this week, I took our friend who's visiting from Germany back there, visiting from Germany, and he loved some of the stuff in their booth. They weren't there this time, but, we got a few more things. So, okay, here's some pictures. Let me put this up. Da, da, da. I mean, they're just like a little mom and pop antique booth, and they go to different conventions and stuff, I guess, and sell like a lot of people do. They're called here they are, the Surprise Box. They're on Facebook and Instagram. And here's some of the stuff I bought. These trading cards. Do you guys remember these? They have all kinds of trading cards from the 80s and 90s. They have I mean, I even got this time, you can't tell him, and I don't think he'll see this before Wednesday, but I'll show you guys. I hit my tooth on the microphone. I even got these Star Trek playing cards from Mystery Chris because he's a super Star Trek fan. Oh, there you go. You could see. But they had these were the funniest ones I saw. They had Alf trading cards, and of course, these are now like 35 years old or something, right? And they have, the stick of gum inside. So it's like, and then the one on the left is Nancy Kerrigan. I just thought that was funny. I didn't know there were ever Nancy Kerrigan trading cards. What? Like, who collected those? Why? Were there other professional skaters who had cards? And then on the right, this one's also really funny. This is from the 90s. It's an AIDS awareness trading card pack from the 90s. So you trade these cards. I haven't opened it. I don't know if I'm gonna open them, but presumably there's cards in there that teach you about safe sex and, "Hey, kids, this is why it's cool to, you know, do safe sex." And it instead of having a stick of gum, it has a free condom inside, which is like a 35-year-old condom in there. So, I just thought that was just so funny. They have such funny old antiques like this. And, here, I think I have another picture from their booth. Yeah. So this is one side of their booth in the shop, and you can see it stands out because a lot of the booths there are older, like they're like 1930s or 20s. It's like older stuff. Or it is the same time period, but they maybe don't take as much care to give it a theme. But this couple, a surprise box, they have these yellow shelves. It's this really fun booth, and you just start looking through, and there's all kinds of stuff. See, they have Bad magazines there on the bottom, and it's all pop culture stuff from, I would say, probably the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe a little bit of stuff from the 40s. See, they have this old fridge with just all kinds of magnets. All those magnets are for sale. Over there, you can see they have a Pink Panther record. I just love it. Anyway, that happened a week or 2 ago. That was funny. And yeah, and very surreal. Therese, I love those antique malls. I do too. My dream is to, eventually I wanna obviously keep talking about social justice and writing about it. I'm working on writing some stuff right now, because I think it's very important, and I wanna keep interviewing people about it until we turn this culture around, which may or may not happen during our lifetime. But, but in terms of fun, like, one of my dreams that I wanna do that's fun, that's sort of, my that would be, I don't know, just my idea of, do you ever have this sort of dream of, like, if I could do anything, what would it be? And I just realized I would have an antique mall. Like, or I would at least have a shop where other people could have their booths like that in my antique mall. I just love being around old stuff. It makes me happy, and I love looking through all it's so interesting. Like I said, going to these shops feels like you're going to a museum where you can actually buy stuff. And I have a feeling a lot of the people who have booths, like this couple I met, I have a feeling they just really love old stuff too. And so they eventually start selling it because they can't stop themselves from continually going to estate sales and picking up acquiring new things, and then they have to sell them. That's, you know, I get it. I get it. So maybe. Davina says, "If you keep stuff long enough, it becomes an antique for free." That's true. That's true. Michael, I'm a sucker for anything Norman Rockwell. Always look for his old art at antique stores. I like seeing what other people collect, like what they're really into, the old the old stuff. Z Highness, apologies for being late. No worries, girl. We're just doing a very chill birthday stream today. Tomorrow's my birthday. It's October. I feel like we needed just a frivolous stream. I'm gonna continue to topics on Friday. I was gonna cover immigration. I'll probably do that on Friday, but today we're just hanging out. So thank you for joining. Or you become an antique, says Davina. That's certainly happening. The other thing about having, our friend's son come and visit and stay with us is not just that it's interesting to see things through new eyes, things about your country or your state, but also pop culture things, and, he's young, and so it's been really interesting to see things with his eyes because there will be references that I make, like in that antique mall I just showed you in that particular booth. I took a picture of it. I'll have to put it up later. They had these hilarious children's books from the 1980s called Mr. T and Me. And it was a cartoon version of Mr. T. I don't know if you guys remember these, where Mr. T would teach you moral lessons, And, like, one of the books was called Phony Baloney, and it was all about how you shouldn't lie or exaggerate. And so I showed him, I was like, "Look, they have Mr. T and Me books." And then I was, "Do you know who Mr. T is?" "No." So then I had to go find videos of Mr. T to show him. So it really is fresh eyes showing me that I am an antique. He wanted to play video games, so we got out my Xbox 360 and he was like, "Yeah, honest opinion, your games, like the visuals and everything, they're really old. Your games are old." Like, "No, are they? I still play them." Like Far Cry 4 or Left 4 Dead 2, games like that. I love those games. And, Dead Island, I think he's having a good time playing them, and he was like, "Yeah, this is cool. It's like playing an antique game." I'm like, "Antique? What?" It's like 2009. Anyway. Yes, Adam said he told us to get the Jibby Jab too. Did you guys see this? I posted about this. It was so disappointing. It's so disappointing to see people like Mr. T just shill. He he did this terrible post recently where it was a virtue signaling post where he had a picture of himself getting a shot, and he said something about how happy he was to get the COVID shot and also how he loves his Skechers. It was actually really sad because he was shilling for Skechers and he was also shilling for Big Pharma in the same video. Here it is. Oh man, hold on. Can you guys see this? Okay. Yeah, this is a bummer. Listen to what he says.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. T. I'm about to get my COVID vaccine booster shot. I'm in my Skechers. Yes, I do everything in Skechers. Yes, I get healthy in Skechers. You heard me. Get your vaccination booster.
Oh no. Why, Mr. T? Why? How sad is that? Did you guys not see this? Some of you were like, WTF. Yeah, it's so it's so sad. It's because he couldn't even be bothered to separate out the shilling for Big Pharma from the shilling for Skechers. So he put them together in one video, which is it's just darkly funny. Like you're not even pretending that you're not just paid for, you know? And then he's like, "Arr," getting the jibby jab, the jibber jab. He does a smile to the camera there.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. T.
Yeah. So that was really disappointing. But hold on. I think the lady's here for the chair. I'm so sorry about that. My husband's taking care of it. So we're good. I thought he was gonna be gone. Yeah, I'm in the middle of selling some things, and so anyway, I was afraid that would happen while we were in the middle of hanging out and talking. So, um, yeah. Okay, so that was the Mr. T video. There was another one. There was another post similar. If you didn't see that one, you probably didn't see this one either. Here, let me pull it up. There was another one from D. Snyder from Twisted Sister, and he pretty much did the same kind of stuff. Hold on. And he also started yelling at Buck Johnson. Do you guys know who Buck Johnson is? online. He started yelling at Buck Johnson because Johnson called him out. Here we go. Okay, can you see this? Now, this is Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. So, the song, We're Not Gonna Take It. We're not gonna take it. Right? Okay. He's clearly always gonna take it. And so let's scroll back to where this starts. Here we go. I think they just paid a bunch of people at the same time, people like Dee Snider and Mr. T, they just paid them to go and do posts all last week. This was October 4th. Around the same time Mr. T did his, they just paid them to go and promote the COVID booster. And so this was Dee Snider's tweet, and he said, "I just got my COVID booster and my flu shot." And then he makes fun of people who won't get the COVID shot by putting up these straw man things like that. I don't even know anyone who really believes any of this stuff, but he puts up these straw man arguments like 5G is amazing and Bill Gates made me post this. So I guess he's trying to make fun of people preemptively who would mock him for pimping for big pharma. Then he does hashtag woke strong. And he's got his picture there with the Walgreens Band-Aid where he got his vax. So some guy says, "Good luck with that." Because he says, "I just got my COVID booster. Good luck with that." And then he goes, Dee Snider says, "No luck involved. Hashtag science." What? Science? Science is science. I mean, is he not aware? He's not aware. Science has not come down on the side of the so-called of the COVID vaccine. I put vaccine in quotes. He's not aware. They're not aware. They just say it. They just say things like that. Okay. So no luck involved, he says, hashtag science. So then Buck Johnson says, wild to see guy. And Buck Johnson, by the way, is I've talked with him before. It's been a while. He is the host of Counterflow podcast. So Buck Johnson says, it's wild to see guys who try to portray themselves as rock and roll wild rebels shill for the establishment. So Dee gets really upset with him. He actually replied to Buck several times or quote tweeted him several times. But this was the one I saw where he's yelling at him in all caps. And he says, "You really have no idea about who I am or what I stand for, do you? A simple Google search will give you all the answers, wild man." All caps, "I stand for all the things I've always stood for. It's you who've changed." Really? Didn't you sing "We're Not Gonna Take It"? But it looks like you are gonna take it from big pharma and daddy government and all of it, all the establishment. You're not just gonna take it, you're gonna take their money, and then you're gonna shill and go online and try to get people to take this shot that there's no longitudinal study for yet that tells us whether it's even effective or what the side effects are. And then you're going to pretend like science is on your side falsely. You freaking loser sellout. So that happened. I don't know. That one bothered me more than the Mr. T one for some reason, because at least Mr. T didn't get in the comments and and become arrogant and pretend like science was on his side and, say stuff like that. At least Mr. T didn't do that. But Dee Snider, like, wow, what a loser. Oh, so I just asked him if he was standing or sitting when he got the booster because he said he stands for all the things he's always stood for. So, he didn't say he didn't reply to mine, so but yeah, it's just funny to see people like this. Yeah, thank you, Lettuce. The shot is not a vaccine, it's a transfection shot using mRNA gene therapy. Yes, I'm probably I don't know, I think they've loosened some of their, censorious rules on talking about the jibba jabba, but, I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll see if this video gets blocked or not because I read that. Ugh. There was a while there where you couldn't talk about anything at all. I don't know if you guys remember, at one point, I interviewed several people about the jab. This was at the height of when different companies and stuff were deciding that they were gonna enforce their employees to take the jab. And so I did a panel where I got to moderate, like, roundtable this group of viewers, people who watch the show who wanted to come on and talk about what was happening at their company. Some of them chose to remain anonymous, others didn't, and several of them worked in the healthcare field themselves and were talking about how their job was at stake because they didn't want to take the jab. One person was talking about how her husband had been advised by his doctor definitely not to take the jab because he had already had a blood clotting issue, some kind of medical condition, and his job did not care that the doctor had said that. And so people were telling these very real heart-wrenching stories of what was happening to them, and immediately YouTube took it down. Strike. Because you couldn't talk about stuff like that, remember? Yeah. The same thing for women who wanted to share anecdotes, like real stories of compare notes about what was happening to their menstrual cycles and stuff. Couldn't talk about it. But I'll tell you, women talk about it offline. YouTube would censor it, but women talk about it offline. Like, "Has this happened to you? Did that happen to you?" I've heard women have these conversations. So, I don't know, I think it's changed a little bit. I think they've loosened up a little bit. Helena, his job did not care. Yeah, they didn't care. Even though the doctor was, it wasn't like he was trying to get out of something for political or whatever. His doctor was like, "You specifically cannot take this because of this clotting medical condition," and his job didn't care. Night Train says, "D also made gay jokes on the Dave Chappelle show once." I don't remember that. He Are you talking about D. Snyder? He didn't even pay the $8 to get Twitter blue. Oh, but he wouldn't because he's woke. Have you guys noticed this? The woke, it's so funny. They were the ones who, before Elon bought Twitter, they just reveled in having this blue check mark because it was supposed to be this elitist thing. Like they're so, um, I don't know, they're so elite, they're so important because they got a blue check. And the ways in which the blue checks were doled out was sort of nebulous. You couldn't really tell how it even got decided. And of course, it's all woke people working there. So it was mostly woke people who had blue checks, but they just loved it. They loved having blue checks. And then as soon as Elon bought Twitter and said, "I'm going to be democratizing it," and basically, blue check doesn't mean anything anymore. It doesn't. It just means you paid for it. That's why I didn't get it for many months because I was like, also like, I didn't know if there were enough reasons to get it, like what kinds of features come with it, or are you really just paying for this so you can say, "We all have it now, that's democratized?" That's kind of a funny troll, but I didn't know if I wanted to pay for that. But eventually, yeah, I thought, "Okay, there's enough benefits. You get to do the longer tweets, and there's a few other things, so, okay, I'll try it out." But the woke won't. They won't use it even for those, like, little extra things that you get, because now it's not an elite thing anymore. It doesn't mean anything. It just means you paid for it, and they don't care. Like, the whole reason they wanted it was because it was elite. It's not elite anymore. Do you know what I mean? So, of course, D. Snyder wouldn't pay for it because to him, it's like anybody could have it. Anybody could have it. They could all buy it. Democratized it. Well, democratized it in the sense of anybody can have it if they just pay for it. I guess you could just say, he put a price tag on it. He made it available to anyone who could afford it. So it doesn't mean anything other than I could afford to buy this. Achilles. Hey, Achilles Jones. Somehow your laugh makes me laugh too. Well, good. That always makes me happy. I like when people laugh. He capitalized it, says Roy Raven. Yeah, that's probably better. He capitalized it. He capitalized it, but I also think he democratized it in terms of maybe there's a better word for that, meaning not just that he's making money off of it, but he made it something that anybody can have. Does that make sense? It's not an elite status thing. It's not some um bourgeois social status that you've got to be in the in group or considered important to get it. You could start an account and just say I'm going to buy this thing. And so in that way he like stripped it of meaning, which I think is funny. It's smart because he did something funny and kind of trolly, and he's also making money off of it, so it's kinda smart. Monetized it. Yeah, he monetized it. Made it more accessible, yes. Equalized, yeah. Any of those would probably work. Capitalizing, it's a threat to our democracy, Adam. Hey, speaking of, that's maybe this is my birthday show is just a show for random thoughts I've had that haven't gone anywhere else. I was thinking about this the other day because my husband and I were talking about people who say, "I don't like the church," or "I don't like organized religion," and I meet so many of those kind of people, I'm sure you guys do too, and maybe some of you are those kind of people, which is fine. I completely get it. What we were talking about, though, my husband and I, was I think a lot of the time, sometimes what those people mean when they say they don't like the church or they don't like organized religion, I think more accurately, maybe what they mean is they don't like corruption and abuse. And I think it's similar when I hear people say, young people on the left say, I don't like capitalism. Capitalism's bad. I think actually, more accurately, what they could be saying is they don't like corruption or cronyism. And that's different from, or they don't like corporatism. That's different from capitalism. Do you guys think there's something there like to that? I was thinking about that because capitalism, if you ask a lot of these young leftists, what is capitalism? Most of them can't even tell you what it is. They just say it's a system to oppress marginalized groups. Like they just use their buzzwords that they know to try and make a sentence that doesn't hold up under scrutiny, but to the average person might convince the person asking them, like, oh, I guess they sound smart. I'll just move on or something. I don't know. They just spit out phrases like that. It's a system that oppresses marginalized people. Okay, no, but actually, what is it? It's basically just the ability to say two people are going to be able to voluntarily enter it into an agreement with one another. It's the open market. That's all it is. It's um without interference. With it's like me saying, "Hey, I want to give you money in exchange for your labor or in exchange for those goods that you have." And vice versa. And the other person voluntarily saying, "Hey, I want to give you goods in exchange for your money, or I want to give you my labor in exchange for your money." That's capitalism. I think what they I think what they mean when they say they hate capitalism or capitalism is bad is that corruption of the system is bad. Corruption is bad. Corporatism is bad. And I think it's similar with the church. When people say the church is bad, organized religion is bad, I think what they mean is corruption's bad, abuse is bad. But I don't know. Maybe sometimes they actually, I don't know, maybe they really do have a problem with corporal worship, like people getting together to meet and worship. Maybe they think there's something fundamentally wrong with that. I don't know. Channel Julio, thank you for the super chat. 9.99. He says, seed money in case you and Anthony decide to start an herb or vegetable garden. I just showed about 75 shallot bulbs. Channel Julio, we definitely want to start a garden, and that's on our list once we get the backyard done. We we have to do there's a few things that we have to do in order to start the garden. We've already got some potted plants and things, but our whole backyard needs to be leveled. So that's also one of the big projects we might do next. And then we're going to put a fence in and stuff, but we have to level everything because right now there's all kinds of pits and holes and trenches and hills. And it's just, you can't, it's not a yard. It's a great, it's a unconquered terrain. We have to conquer it, the backyard and the front yard. And then we're going to do a garden. So thank you very much. Let me see if I can find you. Channel Julio. Channel Julio says, sewed, not showed. Oh, he sewed. You just sewed about 75 shadow loaves. Cool. Yeah, I was looking at some of gardening YouTube to try and learn more about what we wanna do, and my husband was also he was looking at some of the ones, like, that build these, because we wanna build something to put the vegetables, the fruits and or the vegetables that we're gonna grow, so we can do chicken wire around it and keep the raccoons and the other critters that keep assaulting us out of the food. Pergolas, that's what he's looking at. He's looking at how to build pergolas. So I wanna do a few pergolas that look really nice actually, but they do have wire around them so the animals can't get in there. Hopefully, this raccoon's very smart. But that's part of our plan. When we got to go to Paris on this European trip, and if you're new here, it was my first time going. I got to go with my husband who does music. He had 5 weeks of or 4 weeks of shows in Europe, and then the 5th week we just spent in Paris doing touristy things I had never been. It was amazing. So that just happened. And while we were there, we got to go to Versailles, which was beautiful and just luxurious. And as far as the eye could see, just every beautiful, a feast for the eyes, right? And but as we were looking out over the huge Versailles gardens, my husband said, "This is what our backyard's going to look like," which, except very tiny. Except very small. But instead of having they have all these beautiful statues, these copper or bronze statues of Mars, like different gods and goddesses, and we were like, "We're just gonna get this antique looking bronze statue of Bucky's right in the middle. He's gonna be like a fountain, a Bucky's fountain, and then we'll have, like, shrub walking like a French style garden around him." If you get to the center of our shrub maze, there'll be a bronze Bucky statue in the middle. Real Raven says, "You didn't get the Asian Paris depressions." No, I don't know what that is. I don't actually know what that is. The swell says, "The left has a weird affinity for perfection, but instead of just trying to be better, it's a game of lowering all standards." It's like, yeah, we'll all be equally dead if that's what it takes. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's sort of in pursuit of equity, not equality, but equity, where everybody is exactly the same and has exactly the same job and level of privilege and access or whatever. That's impossible to achieve. But in the pursuit of it, they're content to level everything to the ground. So that I heard someone else say a couple years ago when I first started thinking about some of this stuff. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Peterson, but I heard somebody say, "We'll all be equal in the rubble," essentially. And that's what they're content with that. Bringing everyone down to the same level of misery is the most depressing thing. Yes, it is. They can't stand when you're joyful. They get really upset about it. They complain about it online if you post joyful things. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Unless your joyful thing in some way includes striking a blow to the oppressor, then they're like, "Yeah, more proud." But if you're just like, "Hey, I went to graduation and I got to hang out with some of my friends." This happened to a friend of mine. Her daughter got mobbed online because she posted some graduation photos with her where she took photos with her grandmother, and it happened to be the same week that everybody was posting the black square. And so they tried to drag her online, like, "You're white privilege, you should be posting the black square, and, how dare you have joy," basically. That's woke. That's what the woke does. That's what they do. That's why they hate joyful holidays like Independence Day or Thanksgiving. They hate Thanksgiving. Have you noticed that? How much they hate Thanksgiving? Because they hate gratitude. Every Thanksgiving, there's a spate of opinion pieces from the woke about how Thanksgiving is founded on the back of oppression of Native American people and how you should interrogate your family members' male privilege and white supremacy at the dinner table over Thanksgiving this year. It's just this completely like how to suck the fun out of everything, the gratitude out of everything. I'm going to give you a nutshell version of the sermon yesterday that my pastor gave, because I think it was a great sermon. Or I'm just going to talk about one thing he was discussing. He was sort of talking about how when you what's the root of covetousness, of coveting something, and the root of envy. And he was saying, like, if you covet something, I'm doing this on the fly, so I hope I get it right. He was sort of saying, if you covet something, that's you wanting something that someone else has. And envy is you specifically kind of tying it to the person who has it and having resentment for the person who has it. It's the feeling not just of, hey, Bob got a promotion, I would like a promotion, which is not necessarily a bad thing to have that desire for something good. If he was sort of saying, if Bob getting a promotion inspires you to work harder to get a promotion, that's good because you're aspiring for something good. You're trying to reach something good. But coveting is when you become obsessed with that thing, kind of turn it into an idol at the expense of everything else, like coveting your neighbor's wife, like adultery, where you become obsessed with this thing to the point that you're willing to trade everything for it. God, your family, your marriage, your standing, your social status, what people think of you, your character, your morals, your values, everything. That's what an idol is. And he's like, the thing about making that trade is if something has become an idol for you, once you make the trade, you give up everything that means anything. You give up, he uses these great analogies from the Bible. You give up, he said, like an orchard full of fruit trees for one single apple. That's the way he described it. Or you give up, another story from the Bible, you give up your inheritance for a bowl of soup. These trade-offs, these stories that we see in the Bible where people trade everything for one tiny nothing. That in the grand scheme of things doesn't mean anything, but they've made it an idol. I thought that it gave me chills the way he was, like, tying it all back. And once you've made that trade and you get the thing that you coveted, he's like, it immediately almost always turns to ash, where you realize it didn't solve all your problems or do what you thought it was gonna do, or it didn't have that power you put in it because it was nothingness, and actually it caused you to lose everything. I thought that was very interesting. And then he was sort of talking about envy is when you have that state of coveting something, and you also have, on top of that, the sin of envy means that you also have resentment towards a person who has something that you want, where it's that feeling where you hate them because you don't have it, you hate God because you don't have it because he didn't give it to you, like Cain in the Cain and Abel story, where you're sort of like, I deserve that thing more than them, or at least as much as they do. I deserve it, not them. It's it's covetousness mingled with resentment towards the person who has the thing that you want. Yes, trans Helena. So my pastor, if you want to look him up, his name is Bradley Helgerson. He's at Church on the Square. They have a YouTube page where they put all the sermons up. This sermon is not up yet. It just happened yesterday. So I'm doing my best to paraphrase what I took from the sermon. As if we're hanging out and you're friends, I'm just telling you what the sermon was about, which is what's going on. But you can go look him up and see some of his previous sermons. But he made this point, Helena, and when it is up there, I'll link it. But he made the same point. He said, I mean, trans is a great example of this, where they want something that they cannot have, that they can never be, to be the opposite sex. And in some cases, it leads to a deep resentment and envy. And you see this sometimes with what I call the more the more fetish kind of trans, the ones who get lumped in with everyone. I don't actually think they even have gender dysphoria. I just think they really resent and hate women and want what they think they're owed, what they think women have. You definitely see it in that type. And you see those kind of people posting, maybe you guys haven't seen this, but I've seen these posts where they will go on these forums, like on Reddit and stuff for trans, and they'll just rant about how much they hate women while also trying to be a woman. It's crazy. But yeah, that's a great example that anybody can point to and relate to that's currently happening in society. But it could be envy over anything. Papina says, Jordan B. Peterson gave maybe his most passionate speech lately. Oh, I don't know which speech you're talking about, but maybe somebody else does. Communism in a nutshell, says Adam. Yes, also communism. Yes, envy fueled by resentment of what other people have. That whole like, why not me? I deserve that more than they do. And it leads to ruin. It destroys everything. It leads to, in the Cain and Abel story, it leads to murderous rage. Cain has so much resentment for his brother and what his brother has. He murders him. Oh, that's interesting. John says envy only takes bonus point. Pride is just envy turned inward. That's that's interesting. I have to think about that one for a while. Well, one of the things my pastor was saying is that um, the problem is that people. It's not that people want too much. Like in modern society, it's that they don't want enough. His whole point was, if what you're coveting is such a small, meaningless, worldly thing, the duty as a Christian is to help people see there's so much more meaningful things out than that. That idol, whatever that thing is in the way of you seeing that you need to dream bigger, that you should want more, that instead of a solitary apple, you should want the whole orchard that God gave you, except for that one apple, right? And I like the way he talked about it that way because it kind of it turned my brain around a little bit to, wrap my head around that, but I think he's right. Dion with the quotes. Dion says, in an affluent society, the alienated who clamor for power are largely untalented people who cannot make use of the unprecedented opportunity for self-realization and cannot escape the confrontation with an ineffectual self. Eric Hoffer. That's so true. The people who take advantage of of opportunities that woke ideology has created for them to gain power, those people, like for example, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was picked because she is a woman of color. That's the only reason she was picked to be the vice president. He told us. How do we know that? Because he told us. Joe Biden said, I know I'm going to pick a woman. Okay. Now, at that point, if I had been that woman that he called, I would have said, no, thank you, because I'm not going to be condescended to in that way where you're putting me forward as like the only reason you picked me is because I'm a woman. Well, maybe I'm not the best, but maybe I'm the best among the women. You had limited yourself to women to virtue signal. And maybe I'm the best among the women. That's so gross. The only people who will take advantage of those things are people who want what's at the center of social justice and woke, the worship of and the desire for power. That's Kamala Harris has no problem being condescended to that way. She just wants the power. Token hire, said Helena. Yeah. And he said woman of color. Oh, he said he was that specific. He was going to pick a woman of color. Wow. Yeah. I would have said, no, thank you. How dare you? Right? How dare you? I don't want to be picked for my sex or my race. Just like I don't want to be rejected for those things. the drifter. Even just thinking of her, I can hear that cackling laugh. Do you know why it people these are not small things. I know sometimes people think, "Oh, this is just oh, you're criticizing someone for their laugh and that's not that big of a deal and you should focus on policies." Well, her policies are terrible too, but there are certain things about her personality that are red flags that you should look at. And this reminds me of the Cluster B interview that I just did with Josh Slocum. If you guys haven't seen it, this was last week. Go and watch it. It was amazing. He sort of synthesized everything he's been talking about for the past few years about cluster B personality disorders and social justice and woke, and how understanding the former can help you better understand the latter. And one of the things that comes to mind for me with her laugh, with Kamala's laugh, is it's not real. It's like fake tears. Two of the things I've noticed that narcissists and sociopathic people with personality disorders seem to have trouble faking. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Think of Amber Heard when she was giving testimony, right? They try and fake tears, they try and fake laughter, and it just there's something off. You can tell it's not real. Your gut pings. And I think that's what you're noticing the drifter when you hear her laugh. I do anyway. My cackles go up because of her cackling. But yeah, it's like the hair on the back of my neck goes up like a cat. Like, ooh, something wrong here, right? Like a monkey seeing a snake. It's like you know there's something wrong. Your DNA knows there's something wrong because I mean, to use a bit of a metaphor, but she's a snake. She is a snake. She's a predator. And I think we recognize some of these people with personality disorders. I think they're absolute predators. That we know your gut knows something is off just based on their affectation sometimes. I'm not talking about people who are socially awkward. I'm not talking about people with autism or people who have trouble reading social cues. That's totally different. We all know what that looks like. I'm talking about when people are mimics. Like, think of Justin Trudeau, think of Gavin Newsom, the way in which they try and mimic humans. I'm not saying they're not human. I'm just saying there's missing something. There's something wrong with their character. There's something wrong with their personality. And I think some of them fake it better than others, but I think some of them have big tells, and her cackling laugh is one of those. It's manufactured. I don't think I've ever heard an authentic laugh from her. John, we just have to keep an eye out for the manipulative. We were all awkward at some. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I said what I was just saying because it's different than being awkward. That's totally different. We've all been awkward at some point, and I've been around awkward people. I love awkward people. That's different. It's better to just be yourself and be awkward than it is to try and fake some whatever that kind of personality disordered thing is. Are you saying lizard people are real? No, no. Oh, somebody says Dion has a good description of her laugh. Where is it? Let me find it. She says, no, that's not the quote about the laugh. I don't see it. V. Yeah, V, the 80s show. That was a great show. But no, that's not what I'm saying. That was a great show. John says the best description is uncanny valley. Yes, that's a great way of describing it. The phrase uncanny valley, where something is like with a AI or a robot, where it's a good simulation of a human, but there's something slightly off that makes you feel like this is just a little bit weird. I think people always they also feel that way around those who would qualify as sociopaths or narcissists or psychopaths. They have a bit of uncanny valley. Not quite authentic, yeah. Yes, like they're imitating humans. I know that's why some people call them skinwalkers. As they say, they just pick up characteristics of other people. That's if you look up the characteristics of narcissists, of people with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, one of the characteristics is that they basically use people to as a prototype to take character attributes from things that they want to put on their mask, and they just sort of steal things from different people, including trying to mimic their affectations. And I don't know, and it's something's always quite like a little bit off with it. Yeah, shapeshifters. Okay, I'm gonna leave you guys with a question I had. This is a bit more serious, I guess. So we just been hanging out today, but I asked this question today. I wasn't being sarcastic. I was being serious. I don't know if you guys heard in relation to what happened in Israel. A lot of people are now tying it back to the $6 billion that we just gave Iran. And my question was sincere, like, why would we do that, knowing what we know about Iran? Like, what was the justification? And it seems like their only justification for doing it was the prisoner swap, which is that really worth it to give $6 billion? If somebody knows another way they tried to justify it, please let me know. Here's an article, I'll just read about it from yesterday from Reuters. Iran prisoner swap for $6 billion is in the spotlight after Hamas attacks Israel. The Palestinian group Hamas's surprise assault on Israel Saturday and Israel's retaliation have killed more than 1,100 people and focus attention on the Iran-backed Islamist group. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Sunday that Iran has not yet been able to spend a single dollar of the $6 billion in funds that were unfrozen in a U.S.-Iran prisoner swap in September. Blinken also said he had not yet seen evidence that Iran directed or was behind this particular attack, but there's certainly a long relationship, he said. In August, details were made public of a complicated agreement that President Joe Biden approved. 5 U.S. citizens detained by Tehran were allowed to leave the country in exchange for the transfer of $6 billion in Iranian funds that had been frozen in South Korea. At the same time, 5 Iranians held in the U.S. were also allowed to leave. So we swapped 6 for 5 people and then also gave them $6 billion. What was the $6 billion? The $6 billion was Iranian money that had been frozen in South Korean banks after Washington under former President Donald Trump placed a total ban on Iran's oil exports and sanctions on its banking sector in 2019. These Iranian oil revenues were blocked in Seoul, Korea. Where's the $6 billion now? The funds were not dispersed to Iran. Qatar's central bank is, quote, overseeing the funds. I'm putting that in quotes, which are still in Doha. The facts are look at this quote. The facts are that no U.S. taxpayer dollars were involved, Blinken told CNN State of the Union on Sunday. These were Iranian resources that Iran had accumulated from the sale of its oil that were stuck in a bank in South Korea. Under the terms of the Iran prisoner deal, the money can only be used for humanitarian-related purposes, including purchasing food or other goods outside of Iran for import, the U.S. said. Oh, well, I'm sure they'll follow that. Here's some money. Make sure you only use it for humanitarian purposes. Great. Cool. We will. What? The U.S. Treasury's Undersecretary for Terrorism and Finance, Brian Nelson, said all of the money held in restricted accounts in Doha as part of the arrangement to secure the release of 5 Americans in September remains in Doha. Not a penny has been spent. These restricted funds cannot go to Iran. It can only be used for future humanitarian-related purposes. Any suggestion to the contrary is false and misleading. Because of due diligence requirements related to the swap, quote, it will take many months for Iran to spend down this money, a State Department spokesman said. And as we've said many times, it can only be used to purchase food, medicine, medical devices, and agricultural products for the people of Iran. Okay. Most of the Republicans vying to be the party's 2024 presidential nominee tried to link Biden's Iran deal to the attacks, with some alleging incorrectly, says Reuters, that the U.S. taxpayers funded the attacks on Israel. Allowing Iran access to those funds under any circumstances improves its budget situation, freeing up money that would be used to use elsewhere. Nikki Haley, the former South Carolina governor and 2024 Republican presidential candidate, said that's actually true. What she's saying there is a valid point. I'm not a huge fan of Nikki Haley, but that's a valid point. She says, let's be honest with the American people and understand that Hamas knows and Iran knows that they're moving money around as we speak because they know $6 billion is going to be released, and that's the reality, she said. So I don't know. Arnara says Nikki Haley's rant on this was nuts. I didn't watch it. I didn't see her rant. Was it video? I do want to show you this clip. Jack Posobiec shared this from the Post Millennial. Well, they just clipped it, the Post Millennial. This was Antony Blinken. It says, must watch. Antony Blinken admits that Iran has unfortunately always used and focused its funds on supporting terrorism after he gave them $6 billion. Oh, I thought it would open right there, but it didn't. Let's go to this little clip. I can't get it to play. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Can you guys see that? Okay.
Before I move on, I just want to ask about any Americans who are in Israel. Is there any indication that Americans were either killed or kidnapped by terrorists?
Yes, we have reports that several Americans were killed. We're working overtime to verify that. At the same time, there are reports of missing Americans, and there again, we're working to verify those reports.
Before I move on, I just want to ask about.
Okay, that wasn't the right clip. I wanted to see the clip where he says they've always used terrorism. They've always focused on using funds to support terrorism. Hold on. Okay, I think this is it. Here we go. I found it on a different account. Who is this? Terrence K. Williams also shared it.
What do you say about the argument that money is fungible? So Iran may have known this money is coming and used other funds to help fund this attack that happened.
Iran has unfortunately always used and focused its funds on supporting terrorism, on supporting groups like Hamas, and it's done that when there have been sanctions. It's done that when there haven't been sanctions.
So why give them $6 billion last month? Why? I mean, you're basically saying, they always use money to fund terrorism.
And it's always prioritized that. And again, I come back to the proposition that these funds have always been, under the law, available to Iran to use for humanitarian purposes.
What do you say about the argument that money is fungible? So
If you know of any reason why they did this, if you can explain it to me, I still don't understand what their justification was. I'm not being sarcastic. I really can't. It just seems ludicrous to me that they were like, well, we're going to do this prisoner swap and we're going to, Iran's going to give us 6 of their prisoners and we're going to give them 5 of ours and $6 billion. I don't understand that justification. So if anybody can explain that to me in the chat or in the comments, if you're watching this later, that was a question I had this morning. I don't care if it's a dumb question. I don't understand how they justified it. So just curious. I think we're going to wrap it up. I think we've got some other Texas things we have to do today with our guest from Germany. Maybe the Buc-ee's trip will happen today. We haven't taken him to Buc-ee's yet. We meant to, but we haven't. But tonight at 6 o'clock Central, so in 3 hours, I'm going to be on Knit Nights, the Knit Night podcast. So join me there if you want to hang out. Bring your knitting, bring your pumpkin spice drink of any kind. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Tomorrow's my birthday, and we're probably going to go shooting with our guest. And then I'll see you guys on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock for another Halloween-themed live pop culture with Mystery Chris. We're doing true crime. We might have some special guests we'll be announcing. We'll let you know. But, oh, Dion, what about Rudy's? We've already been to Rudy's. We did Rudy's barbecue yesterday. We got that covered. We're trying to show him all the Texas things. So, we had to take him there. Black's barbecue is great too. Rudy's was closer and more convenient to us after church, so we just went there. But yeah, Black's is good. Thank you, Michael Collier, for the $9.99 super chat. Thank you so much, and for the birthday wishes. I appreciate it. Hey, Keely, we're taking off. We just had a birthday stream, just hanging out today, and kind of a chill stream. Good to see you. I wonder if I could show you one more thing before I go. Okay, if you guys don't mind waiting, give me a second. I'll be right back. Anybody that wants to wait around, I'm going to show you one more thing I found at a crazy thing I found at this antique shop. Okay, hold on. Okay. If you guys like old stuff as much as me, if you could go to a vintage store and just read old magazines and look at old furniture and stuff forever, then this part is for you. So at that booth I mentioned, the surprise box, I went back there yesterday with our guest or the day before, and found this magazine. It's called Super Mag. They had a bunch of them. I just bought this one issue. And this one, it's like a 1970s, a little magazine with articles and games and recipes and stuff. It's called Super Mag. And this one on the cover has Miss Piggy and Burt Reynolds. And it says in the centerfold, because they have a centerfold in each of these little magazines, in the centerfold, a Burt Reynolds mini poster. And so they also were on the back, they were talking about the next. That's why some of these things weren't in here. So in the next issue, they were going to have Cheryl Ladd and orangutans, which I wanted to show Mystery Chris. Witch Watch, an interview with Joey Travolta. What's new in roller skates? Look at the feature. What's new in roller skates? Ghosts and haunted houses, new ways to carve pumpkins, and more. Okay. So first of all, in this magazine, here's the Burt Reynolds centerfold. If you wanted to cut this out and put it on your wall, it says best Burt. And they have a whole feature on Miss Piggy. Look at this. It's like many pages about Miss Piggy. Do you guys remember when she was with Charles Grodin? I think that was that Muppets Take Manhattan? Which one was that? Anyway, look, it's many pages. And it says, the lovable Miss Piggy. Handsome men adore her. Ever since, that's the subtitle, Handsome Men Adore Her. Ever since showbiz began, blue-eyed blondes have won men's hearts. Every period has had its golden girls, but the late 1970s boasts more blonde beauties than ever before. There are Cheryl Ladd, Suzanne Summers, Farrah, but most of all, there's Miss Piggy, who can knock strong men out with the bat of her eyelashes. Now, this star is a movie queen, too. Her first flick is The Muppet Movie. And then, so the next page, that's all about how handsome men adore her. Then beautiful women envy her. We were just talking about envy. Okay, look, beautiful women envy her. And why not? Her fans adore her. She gets almost any man she wants. Her face and figure are sheer perfection. And she has lots of friends like Ralph, Fozzie, and Kermit. What more could a girl want? And then there's all these pictures of her with like Gilda Radner and Lynn Redgrave. And it just, I don't know. There's something about this. Yes, I'm nostalgic for this time because there was something about this time that was just so innocent and silly and, pretending like Miss Piggy's a real person. And I don't know. I wish we could go back to sometimes like that innocence about the world, maybe. I don't think it was just an age thing. I think culturally we were a little innocent about things, about how bad things were going to get. Okay, and then there's this whole article on Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds, he may be the number one superstar of them all. And they have, of course, like a whole thing on his career here. And look, him and Sally Field, which is cool. But anyway, there's a lot of cool pieces in here. Her snout is hot, says someone. There's also some little tips on, because Saturday Night Fever was a popular movie at the time. And so they have a whole section on learn how to disco, like from Saturday Night Fever. And they do dancing instructions. They have the footwork here. And then they also have these are more dance instructions. And then on this page, they show you how to get the look from disco and like how to do your multicolored eyeshadow in the late 70s, the early 80s, right? And how to get the look with the shoes. I don't know. I love stuff like this. I love old stuff. I don't know. The Front Porch Conservative. Hey, dude. Good to see you. He says, given how things are going in the world right now, yes, I will take a little innocence these days. Yes. I miss it. I miss that innocence about what was coming. I think at the 80s and 90s, you were that was like at the peak of where liberalism and conservatism together had helped to get us. And then we just took this downfall after that, where liberalism morphed into or got cannibalized by social justice and woke and progressivism. And it just took us to this really dark, regressive place. We didn't realize we were at the peak of freedom at that point, maybe culturally. But yeah. Learn how to disco in 4 picks, somebody says. Yeah. Miss Piggy can knock men out with her karate chop too. Yes. There's nothing quite like a body positive pig. Yes. See, the funny thing about Miss Piggy was we all were in on the joke. Like, everybody knew Miss Piggy was a pig. It was just a silly thing. It wasn't nobody was trying to actually turn beauty ideals upside down for us. One last thing I'll show you. I saw this week. Now, this was posted in 2021, but I guess the photo is making the rounds again, or maybe it just one of my friends saw it and shared it, because I saw it on a friend's post on Facebook. But look at this. This is from Glamour magazine. They posted this disgusting picture in 2021, and it's a picture of, I don't know, it could be a man or a woman, who knows, with some lipstick on. They put this on their Instagram and their Facebook. I went and checked. It was on their Facebook. And this person has lipstick on and a hairy, ugly upper lip, not a full mustache, just dark, hairy, gross, unwaxed lip with a disgusting pimple. And they posted this on Glamour magazine. And they talked about it being empowering, this empowering Instagram photo to normalize facial hair for anyone who's grown up believing it's something to be ashamed of. And they continued about how great this was and how they're normalizing it and it's nothing to be ashamed of. And this is glamorous. This is you can also see the picture that's like greasy and dirty pores, and just, you are a magazine about glamour. And it's not that you should. I saw some people in the comments were like, well, good, because I don't care what people think about me. That's fine. My problem with this is that a Glamour magazine sharing it is the epitome of this up-down world that we're in culturally right now. It's like the Glamour magazines are also the ones who are trying to tell us obesity is sexy and healthy, and it's not. And they're trying to say this is glamorous. And ladies, nothing says glamour like an unsightly hairy upper lip and pimples. Gross. This is culturally, aesthetically, this is where woke is leading us. Absolutely. Up is down, down is up. So I saw that this week. Yeah, Davina, there are 4 lights. Right. They want you to say things that are objectively false. They want you to say things that are not true. That's how they exert power over you. They want you to look at a man and say, yes, that's a woman. They want you to look at that hairy lip and pimple and say, yes, that's glamorous. It's not. It's not glamorous. That was making me bad. Gag says a bad deed in corporate. I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Look at the drifter. Yeah. How far are we from that? Not brushing your teeth is all the rage this year. Come on down. Not brushing your teeth is glamorous. Let's do it. Yeah. Second Timothy chapter 3 says Binary Bard. Oh, yes. About the last days. Yes. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, not lovers of the good. That's where this picture falls, I think. Not lovers of the good. Treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, have nothing to do with such people. They are the kind who worm their way. If you guys haven't heard this verse before, this one's really important. They are the kind who worm their way into homes and gain control over gullible women who are loaded down with sins and are swayed by all kinds of evil desires, always learning but never able to come to a knowledge of the truth. That's the woke con artist in a nutshell. They worm their way into homes and gain control over gullible women, always learning but never able to come to a knowledge of the truth. That's Ibram X. Kendi. That's Robin DiAngelo. That's every con artist who makes money selling this ideology, selling it to gullible women, mostly white women. And they all think they're learning. So I've got my anti-racist, how to be an anti-racist book. I'm learning. No, you're not. You're never coming to a knowledge of the truth. That's a great verse. Thank you for recommending that, Bard. Davina. I'm glad you're hanging out. You always make me laugh. Okay, I'm really leaving. I'm taking off. Thanks for hanging out with my birthday show. Oh, thank you, Selsworth. I'm sorry, I just saw it. Thank you for the $4.99 super chat. The happy birthday. Therese says, this was fun, Keri. Have a great week, chat. Thank you, Therese. You guys take care. I'll see you if you watch if you stick around later, like in 3 hours, I'm going to be on Knit Nights podcast. And so bring your knitting, especially if you're a crafter, come hang out with us and we'll see you later. Otherwise, I'll see you on Wednesday, 8 o'clock Central for pop culture. Have a great week, guys. Bye.